Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Based on a hadith narrated uh, in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ has taught us that what's halal is clear and evident, and what's haram is also clear and evident. And uh, what that means is that we usually tend to know in our deen the things that are clearly halal and haram. Like, for example, we know that water is halal. Certain animals are also halal, such as chicken, beef. If they are slaughtered in a halal manner. We also know that nikah is halal. We also know that doing business is halal, depending on certain conditions, etc. But at the same time, we also know that alcohol is haram. We know that pork is haram. We know that interest is haram. So usually we tend to know, if somebody educates himself about the deen, he will see that there are many things that are halal and haram, and they are quite clear and evident. However, the Prophet ﷺ also taught us that in between the two, in between halal and haram, there are certain things that are doubtful, meaning somebody couldn't say whether this is halal or haram. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ tells us that only few people would actually know whether that thing is actually halal and haram. Now, what should be approach to the things that are doubtful? The Prophet ﷺ tells us that, look, if we were to stay away, from the things that are doubtful, and it just so happened that they fall under the category of haram, then by the end of it, you would have protected your deen, meaning the Sharia couldn't blame you for something which you haven't done, but at the same time, you would be also protecting your honor. And what that means is that even nowadays, there are certain type of food, or there's certain type of restaurant where people are not comfortable to actually eat from, and they feel that this restaurant might not be actually serving might not be serving halal food, or there are certain type of investment where people might not feel comfortable with, that they might think that this investment is actually not halal. Okay, so by staying away from these things that are doubtful, then you would be giving no chance to people to actually judge you. Okay, you will not be giving them the opportunity to talk bad about you, to say things like, oh, look at this person, he doesn't actually care whether he's eating halal and haram, etc., etc. So the best thing to do when we are facing with something which is doubtful is to stay away from it. However, we have to understand something, that nowadays we have something called halal certification, Sharia compliance certification, etc. These things are tend to be, they tend to be a form of branding. Halal nowadays is a form of branding. Okay, and it can also be used as a marketing tool, to target the Muslim community. The good thing about this sort of certification, it actually helps people to understand whether something is halal or haram. Like, for example, it would be impossible for us today to make sure that the chicken that is served in, or the meat that is served in our local restaurant, is actually halal. It would be probably impossible to know that. Why? Because we haven't gone out to see what is the source of that meat. We might have heard about it, we might have seen the place, where they slaughter the chicken, etc., but we wouldn't have seen it physically, that animal being slaughtered in a halal way, and then being transported from the slaughterhouse to the restaurant, and then being cooked in front of us, etc. We wouldn't know about it. It's impossible for us to check. So to have the certification actually helps us understand whether something is truly Sharia compliant or not. Similarly with the investment, nowadays the way investment are structured, they're quite complex. And even the people that work in finance for so many years, they have so many experience, they themselves don't know whether something is halal or haram. They might claim that they feel that this is haram, or they might claim that this is halal, but because they have a lack of knowledge about Sharia, they might feel that they have the knowledge about Sharia, but they don't. And this is quite clear, when you read certain type of books, etc., certain type of articles, certain type of comments for certain type of people, you would know that that they don't have the right knowledge to judge whether something is actually halal or haram. Now, and to have the certification in place actually help us understand whether something is halal and haram. Now, the good thing about it is, okay, as I said, is to understand whether something is halal and haram, but also by buying something which has been certified as halal or Sharia compliant, it actually brings a layer of protection between ourselves and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because on the day of judgment, if we actually buy something which has been certified as halal, and it turns out to be that it was a fraud, okay, and somebody has misused, the halal certification, and they sold it to people as halal when it was clearly haram, then we are not answerable to that. It would be that person who will have to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to answer, to the lie and to the deception he has done to the Muslim community. But we wouldn't be answerable to that. So it acts as a layer of protection, okay, between ourselves and the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just by buying something which has been certified as halal. It gives that peace of mind. Yes, there are certain things sometimes that are quite obvious, like if you see pork labeled as halal, then it's obvious that it's impossible, okay. So there are certain things that are how do you call it, that are nonsense or irrational, and we should just stay away from it. But at the same time, we shouldn't we should actually feel comfortable that when something has been certified as halal or Sharia compliant by how do you call it, by reputable scholarly body, then we should put our trust in it. Now, if we don't feel comfortable with something which has been certified as halal, then we just stay away from it. But we cannot tell to people that this is actually haram, stay away from it. We couldn't do that, okay. And it would, remember, just because we might feel that something is not in accordance with our thinking, or we're not comfortable with something, it doesn't make that thing doubtful. Something which is called doubtful, something where the Prophet ﷺ is saying, the doubtful matters, we should try to avoid it. What we mean by that, these doubtful matters, these are the things that for a mujtahid, for a scholar, it would be impossible for him to judge whether this is something halal or haram. He hasn't got any proof of as whether this is halal or haram. And we see that a lot, especially in the world of crypto. Sometimes there are just not enough information for somebody to decide or to determine whether this crypto asset is actually halal or haram. There's just not enough information. Even if he's trying to get the information, he will not be able to get it. So we see that a lot sometimes in investments, such as crypto, etc. And sometimes even a certain type of food. We just don't know the sources. Okay, we wouldn't know whether it's actually halal or haram because there's not enough information about who's certifying it, etc., etc. Then the best thing to do is obviously to just stay away from it. But we shouldn't, like I said, if we feel that something is not, we're not comfortable with, then we shouldn't try to stop people, to stay away from it, unless we have clear information that something is actually haram. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us understand what is halal and what is haram. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us health and wealth.